Okay, so part two. This is where we left off yesterday. And just kind of going around, in case anyone wasn't here for that. So we're just kind of fixing up anything from yesterday that I realized looks wonky, such as the neck right here, kind of just smoothing it out. It's always nice to take a break from your projects and then look at it with fresh eyes. A great example are my heads, which I will show in the head video. But I sculpted them all in like 1 or 2 days each. And then now that it's been a few days since I did them, I look back at them and I'm like, oh my gosh, these ears aren't even. This mouth isn't even. So it's really good to kind of take that break and then go back to it and realize all your mistakes. Because even with the symmetry tool on, you are not guaranteed to have that perfect symmetry. Because one problem that this app has is that it's very easy to move your models outside of the screen symmetry that it has provided. And once you have that, it's kind of you will use the symmetry tool and realize that even the symmetry tool, the oh my gosh, the symmetry tool is messed up. And for some reason on the app, it's not set to be symmetrical to the layer or item you are sculpting on, but instead to be symmetrical to just the canvas itself. So you do have to be very conscious of that if you are going to be using the symmetry tool for that entire time. And now we are going to be doing the jointing on the rest of the top torso. Once again, fixing the symmetry of the breast. And when I start labeling items on here, I would like to mention that I will be doing it by the view. So when I'm looking at the body, I'm going to be labeling stuff right side if they are on my right side, not on the actual doll's right side. So I just like to say that in case anyone gets confused. So we're doing the same thing that we did last time, where we get the cylinder and we kind of just shape it to the size and width that we need. So we're getting our our basically rod, our broom handle, and we are getting it to the position we want it. We are making sure that it's at the right angle, and then we are putting it in the neck. So now we're going to be spending a little bit of time making sure that it's in the right position. And we even make a little bit of mistakes. I believe I voxel merges too soon, which is the thing you'll see is pretty common when I try to make the joints on this body in future areas, especially for like the legs and the arms. Those areas are just so hard to do. But once again, this is shot in almost real time. So, of course, if you want a very polished item, you would be working significantly slower than I am right now. And by like almost real time, I don't mean that anything is sped up or anything like that. Everything is in the actual time that it took me to do it. However, I'm just screen recording on an iPad for this video. So any times that the screen recording fails or I forget to turn on the screen recording, those chunks are missing. But I do try to resculpt items to try to make up for that. You'll see that with the feet where I try to make a foot and it just looks horrible. So I resculpt a foot from scratch to show you my process, and it ends up coming out way better than my original foot that I didn't have the video process of, which is really interesting. And then here we have me getting a second sphere and getting it to the correct shape because I felt like the joint in that area was just not as deep as I wanted to. And of course, if this were to ever be used, this is a good thing to take into consideration. for the amount of resin that each body would take up, as well as for even the prototypes. You want them to be a certain thickness and certain thinness for each item, not only to save on your own costs, but to save on time that it would take to print. And then I'm smoothing this all out. I'm trying to get it very smooth since, if I 3D print it, it'll just look cleaner. If anyone actually does like this body and like, oh, there's enough interest to get it casted, it would it would be, of course, ideal to have the insides be clean. So we're just ahead of time smoothing this all out. It'll make our job easier in the future, making sure everything's even, checking up on it, getting this joint smooth again, and then smoothing out the other joints, checking on the chest again. I actually saw a comment on Facebook since I posted a picture of my work in progress on Facebook, and I posted a link to the first video, and I realized that, like, oh no, I have to like watch my language now. I don't want to like accidentally swear, because this hobby is very open to minors, and I of course am not a minor, and I completely forgot that there are minors in this hobby, so I'm going to be trying to watch my language a lot more. Try to keep things PG. Not to infantilize anyone, but like I am a child care worker, and I'm also a teacher candidate, which is like the fancy new word for like student teacher. So it is, like I'm already in the field, and I know that it would reflect better on me to not be throwing swears everywhere. So now we're starting the jointing on the arms. And once again, you see me mess up on the voxel merge and do it too soon and have it be all uneven and wonky. But I do fix that once I realize my mistake, which does not happen yet. But you'll see it when it happens. And this is really what's fun about using digital technology to sculpt, is that there's an undo button. With traditional sculpting, which is what I've done for my other sculptures, my other attempts at BJDs, is that it's really hard to fix mistakes. And of course on here, when I do the legs, which you will see, you'll realize that like, oop, I did make a mistake and I don't know how to fix it, which is really the biggest hurdle for doing stuff digitally, is that I don't have the advanced techniques needed to fix a lot of things if I do some sort of mistake that is irreversible. So I'm just kind of, trying my best. Right around this part, my canvas got extremely laggy, but it's not the fault of the app, it's more because I needed to charge my iPad. But you can see that I'm looking over the jointing and it's not even on either side. So press the undo and then start redoing that jointing hole, trying to get at least somewhat even. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you want it to at least be symmetrical enough that it functions. Oh, and another issue you see a couple times in all of these videos is after you undo a part to redo the tunneling joints inside of the pieces, sometimes when you try to adjust it, you realize that you have both the layers still connected. So if you're doing your project and you are trying to undo a previous mistake and remove that item to be adjusted to be somewhere else, do pay attention to that. Make sure that you have what layer you want selected and you don't have multiples. Okay, so at this point I was pretty happy with everything, how it looked at that point. Still struggling with that leg. So we rotated again, trying to get it back on that torso joint. Kind of realized how wonky some of the pieces look, resizing, removing everything. Well, not removing, adjusting the placement of everything. And where are we? Oh, we're gonna go to legs next. Oh my gosh, I recorded this all yesterday, so I'm looking back at it trying to remember what I was doing. Okay, so now we're going to be going on the leg again. There we go. So I just kind of realized that since I made the bust a bit bigger, that the hips kind of looked not to the proportion that I was aiming for. And for me, the current aesthetic of the body really reminded me of the Volks SD16 body. And it was kind of like, ooh, this is too close, so I gotta make it look more different. It looks too close to that body. It makes me uncomfortable. I gotta make it look, at least somewhat unique. But you'll see this as I start adjusting things, where I'll adjust this one thing a little bit to a different shape, and then oh no, now it looks weird, so I have to adjust this other thing to match with that. And very slowly, what I originally planned to be like a very stereotypical ideal kind of hourglass yet slim body slowly became very, very thick, to the point that now looking back, I think I can actually use this for one of my OCs. And I sculpted her head as well, so I guess when this is all done, I will have some kind of showcase of that head on this body. Hey, maybe physical. I've been rethinking the concept of getting it printed. I'm sort of interested in getting it printed now, at least for myself. So maybe the final video would be that. If not, at least just uploading the file into this file and then showing them together. You can see furthering the adjustment on the leg, and then once I make the thigh bigger, now I have to then adjust the joint. Now I have to adjust the knee and the calf and everything. So we're just furthering the adjustments. For all of these adjustments, I've just been using the move tool. I find that it's really the easiest thing to do this job. So I already have done my feet at this point in real life for the doll, not like myself. So I think that's gonna be what tomorrow's video is, hopefully. I also have additional busts already filmed, well, already screen recorded. So I'm gonna see if I can do the busts, the additional busts, and the feet in the same thing. And then I guess the day after that would probably be the arms, because I do have the arms finished at this point. So for the rest of this video, it's just going to be the jointing on the legs, and then probably the butt. So, and what I really like about the way that I did the butt on this model is it kind of reminds me of how, like, the old Eiffel House body is. Or at least, well, not the old one, but like, their very large one that they have. I don't have an SID or the YID or the EID, but I do have a GID on the old body, and it still has that same silhouette. So I thought that was kind of cool, but it's not close enough that it's like, ooh, this is that body, but like a sad attempt to recreate it. But it's instead kind of like, oh, I can see like the inspiration because of how full you made this butt. Okay, so we're gonna be doing like the butt area right away. First I do attempt to make the front hip joint smoother, but I quickly realized that that's just not gonna work, and that it's just gonna be easier to work on that later. Which at this point in the sculpting, I did think the hip joint was gonna be the easiest part, since I already had a plan for how I was going to make it, and yeah, I end up being wrong. And I feel like you can hear my bed squeaking in this recording. But yeah, here's me adjusting it, trying to adjust it, and then I realize once I hit the back that it's just gonna be easier to make the butt, so I'm just gonna do it now instead of leaving it for later. So here I am undoing all those settings, and then I'm going to get a sphere from the primitive section, and I'm going to insert it to where I need it. Now I'm not going to split the sphere, I'm not going to trim it, I'm not going to anything. I'm just going to use it as is because I already have that plan on how I'm going to do that jointing, which I showed at the very, very, very start of the first video. But now is when it's going to actually become relevant very soon. So here I am adjusting it, realizing I had the back of the torso joint really wonky. I'm going to have to build that up. It looks like she has a bad BBL at this point. So I'm just kind of adjusting it the way I want it. Slowly thickifying this model. So once I get it roughly where I want it, I'm going... Okay, so at this point I have not validated this primitive, but on the little area where you do validate your primitives, you'll see a little section. It's by the whole section that I showed in the last video. There is that little thing that says mirror, and that's what I'm going to be using here for the butts. So, yep, right there. So then it's now mirroring, so I have two of them, and I'm just adjusting them so they look like a butt. Slowly becoming a more aesthetically pleasing BBL. Still has that completely wonky back, but I'm going to be showing how I fixed that in a couple minutes. Of course, you gotta voxel merge them together with the bust, and we are going to be getting the smooth tool and trying to blend in these pieces to the back before we work on it any further. So just getting that smooth tool on full strength with symmetry on. My canvas was lagging horribly at this point. And then we are using the brush tool and we are building on where we want some more clay. And then we will be going back with the smooth tool to kind of blend out what are additions to the original body. And then, of course, on your doll, you're just going to keep doing these steps over and over again until you get it where you want it. The move tool just isn't really what you want at this point in the sculpting, since using the move tool does affect the pixels of your 3D object. And we're really just trying to build on more so than inflate or stretch the pixels. And then the rest of this little clip is just kind of adjusting everything, making sure that it doesn't look too wonky, but that it still allows for the proportions and the very cartoony, unrealistic figures and aesthetic while still maintaining some level of realism. And here we go, adjusting the bust because I felt like the bust was too small compared to the badonkadonk at this point, and then going back to the torso and furthering the adjustments. Here we have going to the move tool and trying to get the waist area to match up with the rib cage area on the bust joint. So just trying to get them more even. At this point, she has turned into kind of a mashup of a hourglass and a pear-shaped body, which the pear shape is accurate to the character that I had planned, but the bust is a little too big. But we will be working on different bust size later. I'll do just kind of like a quick thing of like, this is how you do it, and then furthering the actual details of each of the busts later. Since I do want to get the leg jointing and the feet and the arms and the arm jointing and the hands done first before I start polishing up each body parts. So here we are adjusting the hips again, adjusting the legs again because I felt like the bust was too big at this point. Again. Okay, so we're going to be hitting the leg joints right away. And for this sculpting, if anyone is doing like specific jointing that I don't show, since I am just kind of replicating, I didn't enunciate properly. Since I am just replicating the kind of jointing that I typically do on my physical sculpting, which like I've never finished a full doll physically either. I eventually just kind of get bored of my projects, but I'm not gonna do that for this one because this one only takes a few days to do. Well, for physical sculpting, you can be working on that for years and years and years. So we're finally going to more detailed adjustments on the leg. I would say the leg is the closest area towards being done on this doll, like as is. So just continuing on with those adjustments using only the move tool. So I have the strength of it typically on full blast, and then I just adjust the size that I'm using depending on what I'm doing. Usually I do have it very large so I can move everything without it looking like oatmeal afterwards. But the move tool on the smallest brush setting is also very useful. I'll be using it a lot for when I start doing the feet, which is really fun because I lost a lot of the original footage for my first attempt at foot, so I redo it from scratch, and the one that I do while recording actually turns out better than the original one that I sculpted, which, I mean, it kind of just shows how important practice is when it comes to this medium. So this is the jointing that I'm deciding for this body. If you do want like specific jointing, I guess you can just DM me on Instagram or something. Or if you're seeing this from the Facebook sculptors, like BJD sculptors group, I guess you can message me there too. That's fine. But yeah, either on there or my Instagram sugar_pineapple, and just kind of like, I don't know, send me a picture of your plan if the instructions that I gave don't really allow for you to make that jointing, and I can try to make a separate video showing how to make that jointing, or at least attempting it. If I completely fail and I can't get it done, then I will let you know after attempting, but I will be attempting. Not only because it is hard to try to learn new apps, And like I'm making this for my friend originally, right? Because they had trouble with this app. But also because it would be great practice for me. While it is nice to have consistent jointing on all of your dolls, it can be a bit annoying if the original jointing that you do choose just doesn't end up being very good. Kind of like the old resin soled peanut joints, where it was like a joint and then like a cap on top of it, which I hear was very annoying to work with. I've never had any of the resin sole bodies with the jointing like that. I only have their newest body, which like it's not the best either, but I love their customer service, and like that's really the biggest thing for me. So here I have multiple slicing attempts trying to get the jointing that I want, and it still doesn't come out ideally how I want it. So I do just kind of eventually settle, maybe in a future jointing video or secondary attempt at the future bodies I work on, I will figure it out. But for now, this is really my best attempts. And then we're just kind of moving around, making sure everything looks the way I want it. We have once again the move tool because I saw how kind of wonky the ankle joints are. They're not very circular. They don't have to be perfect circles. Since I would prefer the more natural kind of look of an oval, but I also own lots of Miro dolls, so I know how absolutely like hellish all of those oval joints are. Where like, hey, it was a fun idea and execution, but wow, the jointing is affected by that decision, and not in a good way. So here I'm trying to get the jointing I want on the knee with the split tool, and I realize that it doesn't really work. So eventually I will just be using primitive shapes and the voxel merge to get the jointing that I want, and that will that way would actually be way easier, especially to get the more even symmetrical shape that I want. So here I am continuing to attempt because I don't want to give up yet. I eventually do give up though. And then we will be starting the stringing channel right away. So I'm renaming everything. Renaming all your items and your layers is really important. You don't want to accidentally delete the wrong item because it has the same name as one of your other items. So it's best to take like a little break every once in a while and make sure all your layers are properly labeled. So what I'm doing is I'm getting the exact same leg, and I am adjusting it to be a smaller version of that leg, because I'm going to be putting the shape inside my outer leg to create a tunnel that is roughly a similar shape to this leg, as opposed to just doing a cylinder. But I feel like in theory you could probably attempt to do a much easier similar hollowing by using the hole tool before you validate in a shape, but I have yet to try it because I don't know if you could adjust the leg to the shape that you want it at that point, like before the validation process. So we're just kind of adjusting it, trying to get everything the way that I wanted, trying to get everything in the perfect area. Because if you do it too close to the edge, you will create a hole, and we will see this problem uh pretty soon, where I run into the same issue and I don't know how to fix it. So I just use the pinch tool and I stretch out all of those pixels until you can't really read the hole that I created. And here we are furthering the adjustments, getting everything where I want it. And then once we are ready to this, we will be selecting both of these layers and then hiding the inner layer with that little eyeball thing, like crossing out the eyeball. And then we will simply be voxel merging it. And that's how we're going to get that hollow inside for at least this leg. So I do record all of these like half asleep. But which is like why my voice sounds like this, but also what allows me to go on these long rambles. Since in any other situation, I'd probably just put like royalty free music during this entire thing. But I feel like forcing me to do a constant narration really helps avoid that. Since like what would I do? Like go on YouTube and like just hold my phone up to my iPad. Horrific. I mean, it would probably be more pleasant to listen to other than me just talking, just half asleep talking. I would say getting the tunneling right on this joint probably was the hardest thing to do besides feet and hands. I don't even know how hard hands are gonna be. I'm a little comfortable doing hands traditionally with clay. They don't turn out good, but like I'm comfortable in what the steps that need to be done when sculpting traditional hands. Not not happy for when I'm gonna have to do hands, but like feet were only like a tiny bit harder than all the adjustments I had to do to get the jointing on this leg. It probably would have been easier to do just a cylinder, but then I would have to make the leg shaped a bit different in order for that method to work. So if you are going to be doing that, you are going to have to take that into consideration while you are building the shape of your leg. Then here I go trying to use that split tool to get the jointing. Once again, just not feeling it. I tried to see if just putting it on a single plane and trying to get it straight would be the easiest. But then as soon as I move it, I realize that the line is not straight. And at that point it's just easier to do the curved line using the lasso. Because like when are you gonna judge that the lasso isn't ideally straight? Like that's the point, is that I use lasso, so it's gonna be kind of wavy, kind of wonky. But using the line tool and then seeing that I couldn't even get the line straight would be significantly more embarrassing when looking at a final project. So we're just going with the lasso tool. It doesn't get the exact shape I want, since I would like for just the kneecap to be part of that upper joint, and then the rest of it kind of just being part of the bottom lower leg. And then sadly a lot of my calf is lost when I start doing the jointing. And then I just kind of accept it, and we're just gonna move on to those knee joints. Like I can't I can't deal with these legs anymore. Okay, so for the knee joints, I'm just going to be doing sort of like a peanut joints, So I got my sphere and I'm adjusting it to about the size I want it. And then I'm going to, oh, my kitty cat. One of my kitty cats are right by here. I'm going to get a second sphere. I'm just going to copy this one and I'm going to put it on top. Just kind of bloop it together into this little tiny snowman here. And then I'm going to be blending them together right away. So just adjusting them to make sure that they are where I wanted them to be, as close to even as I can get. And then we are going to be using not a sphere, a cylinder to connect these pieces. You can see at this point, because I'm sculpting everything on the same canvas, it does become hard to then move around the canvas and adjust everything without your other items on the canvas getting in the way. So I would say it would be extremely easier to, instead of doing this mess, doing everything on a separate canvas and then just having one canvas where you would then import each of the pieces to adjust. But as is, having everything, the entire doll on this single canvas is very, very challenging. And I don't mean like having the top of a leg on one canvas and the bottom of the leg on another. I mean like do a whole leg with the jointing on one canvas and then just import it to a separate canvas when you're trying all the pieces together. It'll be so much easier. You won't have to deal with this headache that I am, and you probably won't have the legging issue that I do. So now we are merging them together. We're using voxel merge, and I will be smoothing it to the best of my abilities for this point, and then slowly realizing that I'm going to have to use more tools to get it smooth the way I want it, such as the flatten tool, which you will see right away. Right now I'm just really going at it with that smooth tool. I really had a lot of trust in this tool, only for it to betray me by not working as strong as I wanted to, which is really interesting because typically on faces with the same strength, I just destroy the face with a single swipe. So it really is just kind of a case of like not working the way I want it. Probably not because of the app itself, but just more so my lack of skill, if anything. So we're using the flattening tool. We're trying to get it easier to blend out, and then we're smoothing it out continuously, upping the size of the tool in hopes that that works, and it does pretty much work. And then we're going to be making the jointing in the next video. So this is the end. We got the basic shape, and then we will be making the jointing.